Previously on Comic Island.
I work at the Life Foundation, and I need your help.
If there is a major studio out there I would consider the worst, Sony sure might be a contender. Though there are exceptions both in recent history and the long-distant past, Sony has a real issue with quality control on a level that really exceeds the other big film distributors out there. Sure, every studio produces duds or movies drenched in cynical nonsense, but when it comes to product placement, questionable marketing, corporate behavior, and the ability to keep quality franchises together, well...
Can we talk about Sony? And how
Now they're the worst?
I think I'm starting to hate them.
Future. This was such a great shot in the trailer. I can't wait to see what comes next. It's over? Well, f*** you too then!
That major hack attack against Sony.
Reportedly accessing a list of phone numbers, employee social security numbers, even aliases.
That's a lot of fish.
But let's not get too far with this one. The original Spider-Man films serve as decent examples of Sony producing quality content, some more than others. Even this year, I feel Sony did a great job with Jumanji, a goofy movie mostly for kids that was honestly better than it had any right to ever be. It did well financially, and most people seem to have liked it more than they didn't. Which is exactly what Venom needs to do. Now don't get me wrong, I'm not saying Venom needs to be anything like Jumanji in terms of tone or quality, but it needs that exact same sense of identity and purpose. It needs to know from the start what it is and what it wants to be. It needs to pick a lane and stick with it. And when it comes to Venom, that lane pretty much has to be dark, violent, and fun. That's not a criticism or a complaint, it's just an observation. So if I were to make this Venom movie, well, I would definitely make it R-rated for one thing, and I would also go the Agent Venom route. Because that character and story hits all the marks it really needs to. It stands nicely on its own, it's the exact tone that this movie needs to hit to attract the right audience, and there's a lot of compelling content within the Agent Venom comics. As we talked about in my last video on the character, Flash Thompson pretty much has the perfect recipe to be a good protagonist, and the comics are filled to the brim with the dark, violent, and fun material that this movie needs. With the backstory of the character, Sony is basically sitting on a gold mine, the perfect conditions needed to tell a great Venom story, or a series of stories across several movies. But that's not the direction they're going with. That's not a deal breaker in and of itself, and to be fair, the Venom trailer does look halfway decent. Not only in the symbiote, but in the movie itself, which shows some fairly interesting cinematography and shots being shown off in promotional material that suggests a different movie with certain horror takes to it, but also a strong focus on action. And we should never judge a movie too much by its trailer. In fact, it's very important we keep that part in mind. Even a trailer like this that does seem to give a pretty good indication of what we can expect this movie to be about, it's not necessarily a good representation of that movie. Lots of trailers are way better or worse than the actual movie in question. So please understand I'm not making a declarative statement about the quality of the Venom movie one way or another, not until I see it. But that should be obvious to anyone, and certainly it doesn't prevent us from talking about what the trailer does show us, and more importantly, the context of this movie under the studio it's being released. On paper and at first glance, it seems like we have everything we need for the perfect Venom movie. It is Sony, so everything should be taken with a grain of salt, but overall, the trailer does have its promising moments. It should be noted that this is not part of the MCU, though Spider-Man Homecoming was made with their creative direction. This Venom movie and all side Spider-Man projects are done under the thumb of Sony, rather than Marvel Studios. But of course we should approach things with an open mind and the benefit of the doubt. Right? Right? I don't want to give the impression that I'm down on a movie I haven't seen yet, that I'm assuming it's going to be bad. It's cool that Venom appears to talk in the third person and actively communicates with Eddie Brock in the trailer. The alien suit itself looks decent, though I'll point out doesn't look totally perfect either, and that voice I find a little generic. It seems as though they're getting Tom Hardy to do the Venom voice, which is interesting, and the guy has done a lot of great voice work in the past, even within the superhero genre. But I also found it not what I'd expect, not alien enough. Funnily enough, it's been so long since we've had a Peter Parker or Clark Kent work for a newspaper proper, that the whole journalism angle of Eddie Brock's character does actually feel kind of refreshing, so that's something too. So yes, there are cool aspects of that trailer. There's also references to something called the Life Foundation, a typical greedy corporate bad guy, an awful lot of less expensive shots of Tom Brady doing stuff over Venom itself, with weird, goofy-looking animation where Venom's arms stretched out of Eddie Brock. So in other words, there's just about every bad habit from modern superhero movies on display in this trailer. Generic groups with silly names and mysterious goals that ultimately peter out into nothing, boring villains and antagonists, and maximizing the amount of time that a superhero isn't actually appearing as the superhero that's on the frigging title of the film, in favor of screen time for the actor. I don't mind when we do this here and there, especially when it's done organically, but everything about this trailer shows a lot of stuff that doesn't seem organic and just seems easier for the film studio and for letting Tom Hardy be in all these scenes. I get the desire for that, but that desire really doesn't make sense when the movie's named Venom, and clearly what's bringing people to the table is Venom. And no, we don't know if this is what the movie's gonna be like on the whole, but all the hints of it are right there. The marketing could be smart about all of this. They might be holding back on showing just how much Venom is in this movie. But let's be real, smart, subtle, and nuanced marketing, does that sound like Sony Pictures to you? Collectively, this strikes me as just another modern blockbuster. Nothing special, and with every typical cliche and overused character archetype that frankly I am sick to death of at this point. We just saw the release of Infinity War, a bold, ambitious adaptation of a crazy comic book story that took a lot of risks and paid off in full. And Deadpool 2 is hot on its heels as we speak. Both of these movies are from franchises that took chances and challenged the audience, while everything about Venom feels so safe in comparison. The exact sort of thing we've seen and done over and over again in so many other films. It sure looks like it's going to be PG-13. And while the director has done some good work with some interesting roots in comedy before, this is the guy who made Zombieland, and that's not a bad movie, but the sort of thing that could have been better. Which is exactly what this trailer strikes me as. It looks okay, but it could be better. Also, this thing has like 4 credited screenwriters, which is the maximum allowed by the Screenwriters Guild, so the script is all but guaranteed to have gone through even more hands than that. All this is to say that a lot of people are excited about this trailer, and I don't fully understand why. It might be a good idea to temper your expectations if you are one of these people. Even the very basic concept of their weird Spider-Man without Spider-Man cinematic universe is very strange to me. Sony has said this new universe they're trying could have ties to the MCU at some point, which actually makes things way more interesting if true, but for now their plans just make no sense as they exist. Even choosing Venom itself to start this weird experiment of theirs seems like low-hanging fruit. The easiest choice to try and workshop something new in the world of Spider-Man. Heck, it's not a bad thing, it might be the decision I would make too, but it also means it's the least ambitious idea on the table. We have a lot of reason not to assume this movie is going to be great, and very little reason to assume it's going to even be good. Except for this.
We are Venom.
That's not enough for me, guys, and I'm not sure it should be for anyone. I just wish this movie were brave enough to tell us a real story with Venom. Say of a broken man who risked everything for a chance to walk again, who struggles with abuse, depression, and PTSD in a realistic way, often backsliding into alcoholism and failing, but genuinely trying to do better. Instead, we have a guy investigating an evil company that, surprise surprise, wants to use Venom for some nefarious purpose. You know what would be really crazy and totally awesome? Dumping the alien in a war zone with a traumatized veteran and watching them go up against an army. Or it losing control the first time it encounters Spider-Man. Or making a real proper deal with Disney and having an MCU character show up in exchange for Venom getting to show up in an MCU film down the road. How cool would it be if Venom just randomly squares off with Captain America in this movie? It's not gonna happen, but that'd be really cool. There's a reason why I brought up Agent Venom in an earlier video first, and have a couple times now in this video. Because on the one hand, I see a future for this character, and on the other, I see a representation of what he's become. Good ideas abandoned in exchange for the old and the convenience. I don't know if Sony's really thought through any of this. How many creepy aliens have we seen by now in film history? And in comparison, how many half-insane, rampaging Black Ops alien super soldiers have we seen? I don't have anything against Eddie Brock. I think he could deliver a perfectly fine story, a great one, if not one of the best ever. It just seems to me that you have a great story that could have been told, and a boring one I've tried 100 flavors of in film already. So Venom might be good, I hope it is, but my issue is that, well, everything I just said. This is the wrong studio focusing on the wrong character for the wrong reasons. And somehow, I'm not entirely convinced that's gonna make for a great movie. And I feel like a lot of people are getting their hopes up for the wrong reasons. Worst case scenario, it's better to set yourself up to be impressed rather than disappointed. This is not the MCU. This is not like Infinity War or Deadpool, where creators and actors have already proven themselves in the past. We're in untested waters here, so it could be anything from the best movie of the year to one of the absolute worst. And in reality, it's probably going to be somewhere in between that, a watered-down version of the Venom we know from the comics. Not bad, maybe even good, but not good enough. Not for this character. Perhaps it'll be the start of something better, maybe it'll surprise us all. But let's temper our expectations because there's nothing here that merits hype. I don't expect this movie to be terrible, and while that's fine, I mean it literally happens all the time, it's just so hard to see it happen when it's something you truly love. When they take a character and make a product not bad or different, but bland. So what do I want? Do I want everything Spider-Man in the clutches of Disney? Well, based on current track records and trajectories, yes. The MCU just has a better track record than Sony at this point. But in the long term, well, no, not at all. When it was first announced Disney might finally get the rights back for the X-Men and the Fantastic Four from Fox, I should have been excited. Yet I can't help but worry. Having 4 studios work on different comic book films definitely has its clear benefits. It's kept Marvel on its toes while DC and Fox, for better or worse, have been forced to try out new things neither would have dreamed of a decade ago. Yeah, crossovers can be fun, and it is always a fun opportunity going forward, but by having this split among 4 different companies as opposed to 2, each pushing and pulling one another into doing their very best, that's how we get the very best of comic book movies every time. In the long term, well, nothing lasts forever, and the MCU won't have the same people in charge of it indefinitely. What I want is for there to be a Sony Studios out there that can make superhero movies that compete with all the other studios. I want Sinister Six to be a thing, and for it to be done well at that. I want a good Venom movie? The hell, I want a series of good Venom movies that can either stand well on their own or cross over into other stuff, but more than anything, I really just want Agent Venom. And maybe I'm being a bit stubborn on this character. I'm definitely not against Eddie Brock for any specific reason. It just feels that everything about Flash Thompson would be more unique and interesting than whatever Eddie Brock has to offer. The word representation gets thrown around a lot lately, though I feel like Flash would actually really represent something different and positive for a lot of people. The comics and even superhero films have a pretty good track record in this regard, don't get me wrong. Between Professor Xavier and several other characters from Daredevil to a handful of others, those with accessibility issues are fairly well represented in the world of superheroes. But Flash and his story would have been interesting and different, distinct from what we've seen in Professor Xavier and other similar characters throughout superhero film history. And Tom Hardy would have probably been a good actor to play that. He has a huge range and a wide variety of capabilities in terms of what he is able to do on screen. But instead he feels like any other Hollywood star in any other major Hollywood blockbuster. There's not much unique that we've seen out of Eddie Brock thus far. And that's what I see in the Venom trailer time and time again. Sony's taking the easiest step in every regard with this movie. In focusing on Venom and not doing anything involving Spider-Man whatsoever. In picking Eddie Brock. Well, if you're going to take the shortest route to success every time, it's not going to pay out in the long run. There's nothing that's going to impress people or be all that distinct and memorable from every other superhero movie coming out this year. I get that I'm being a bit of a downer here, but I am getting tired of Sony ruining things that I love. And I really do love Agent Venom. After we had that whole Team 4-star thing where I made that Vader abridged video, I'd planned to go into the Venom series as well. And we even managed to get a whole recording done for the first episode. Then we got hit with the copyright thing, and I've since kind of stepped away from the Bridge series and am planning something kind of different instead as sort of a long-term goal. Yet I do still have all those recordings, and since we've all been so good, and since I've talked about how much I like Agent Venom, well, I figure there isn't much harm in sharing a little clip of some of the wonderful work that these voice actors did before we had to unfortunately cancel the project. So thanks for watching this video. Let me know what you think in the comments section below and enjoy this never before seen and never to be completed section of Agent Venom Abridged.
Oh, I like this! You're strong, but not quite as strong as me! Now, I'm going to choke the surprisingly gooey life out of you!
I knew this would come in handy. Hey, buddy! Catch!
Oh, shit.
Well, we don't know what you looked like before, but it looks like we carved ourselves a brand new Jacko bitch. Dick!
Son of a bitch is persistent. He's got the doctor. This mission is over. Don't let them get him.
Oh, I like your gusto, kid. With pleasure.
Operative Venom? Operative Venom. Flash. You need to get a hold of yourself.
I'm okay. I'm in control.
The mission is a scrub.
Get the suit off of him. Catherine, Aaron, please excuse me.
So this is the part where you scream at me. Call me maggot?
Yeah, no. I don't yell. I don't hold hands. I'm not your coach, or your sergeant, or your goddamn babysitter. You know what I am? I'm the guy with the finger on the button that controls that little chip in your brain. You weren't the first member of Project Rebirth, you know. And you know what happened to the last guy? We blew his head off, because he couldn't stay in control. You lost control last mission. Do not let it happen again. And if you ever strafe the mission again, if you ever waste my time rescuing people instead of doing your job, I will cut you down. Do you understand me, son?
Yes, sir.
Where the hell have you been?
Filling out donation letters to the VA. I'm sorry, Betty.
My ex-husband taught me how to sniff out lies, Flash. You're hiding something again. You've been gone for days. You are drinking again.
Betty,
How could you?
How could I not think that? Get your shit together or stay out of my life!
My name is Eugene Flash Thompson. I've lived an interesting life. I'm an alcoholic, just like my old man. It's a wheelchair ramp away from a pint, but the AA meeting is blocked by a flight of stairs. I bet the old man is laughing at me right now. I remember something I heard at one of those meetings. Seems fitting. A man's venom poisons himself more than his victim.